I knew the moment he smirked that the air in the room had shifted. The CEO's son, Nathan, strolled in like he owned gravity itself. His suit probably cost more than my first apartment, and his Rolex ticked loud enough to make sure we all heard every second of his nepotism. He tossed the folder onto the table with a flourish, like he was presenting an Oscar instead of my reassignment papers. "Enjoy your new office in the basement," Nathan said, signing his name with the cocky flourish of a man who never read the fine print. Around the table, the directors froze. A few looked down at their tablets, scrolling furiously as though they'd find a loophole. One coughed. Another adjusted his tie like it was strangling him. No one dared to meet my eyes. I didn't flinch, didn't argue, didn't beg. Instead, I smiled. The kind of smile sharp enough to cut drywall. And then, with every eye in the room watching, I slid my phone onto the table, pressed a button, and put the call on speaker. "Clause activated," I said calmly. "Wire $100 million immediately." Silence. Nathan froze mid-smirk, the pen slipping from his fingers like it had just turned to lead. His jaw worked, but no words came out. Across the table, his father, the actual CEO, stared at the signed papers in front of him, his face draining of color. For the first time in 20 years, I saw disbelief on that man's face. Jaw slack, eyes wide, silence heavy as concrete. But let's rewind a little, because this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment miracle. This was 18 years of sweat, loyalty, and strategy packed into one thin folder. 2 months earlier, I'd been in the break room waiting for the world's slowest Keurig to spit out what passed for hazelnut coffee when I heard Nathan's voice from the hallway. He never whispered. Whispering required self-awareness, and he'd never been infected with that disease. "She's done," he said loudly, like I was already a ghost. "Once I push her down a floor, the equity shifts. By the third quarter, I'll have full control after followed. Some junior analyst desperate for approval." Nathan laughed too, that grating frat boy cackle that made my skin crawl. My coffee never finished brewing. I left it behind and went straight to the one place Nathan never knew existed, my encrypted Dropbox, my vault. Inside, I had years of buried leverage. Drafts of contracts, notes from investor meetings, email chains executives thought no one kept, and glowing like a loaded mousetrap in the middle of it all. Section 14B, the key executive change of control clause. I knew every line by heart because I'd written half of it. 2 years ago, during a liquidity scare, I helped restructure our agreement with Crownwell Ventures, our largest investor. While the board panicked about payroll, I tucked in a safeguard clause, one that no one noticed. It stated, if any listed key executive is reassigned, terminated, or stripped of authority without a supermajority board vote, operational control reverts to Crownwell Ventures for not less than 18 months. Guess who was listed as a key executive? Me. I remember smiling when I reread it that night. All it would take was one arrogant move, one signature. From that moment on, I prepared. I pulled every version of the contract, time-stamped each one, and had notarized copies stored under different names. Even one in a safety deposit box registered to my niece's cat, Mr. Whiskers. Every time Nathan forwarded an email without copying me, I saved it. Every system access he revoked, I screen recorded. Every snide remark, every exclusion, every "Karen will handle the follow-up." I logged the date and time, because power grabs are noisy. But real control? Quiet. And mine was written in black ink on a contract Nathan had never bothered to read. The morning of my so-called demotion was theater. Nathan strutted into the boardroom late, protein shake in hand, sleeves rolled up like he'd been working hard on anything besides his biceps. He didn't even look at me when he signed the papers. To him, I was already gone. Effective immediately, he announced, Ava will be transitioning into a more operational role. Closer to the basement, more hands-on. He laughed. No one else did. That was his mistake. Because while Nathan thought he was burying me, he was actually lighting the fuse. And the moment his pen touched that signature line, the countdown began. Back in the room, my phone echoed with the dial tone. Then a crisp voice answered, Crownwell Ventures. Miranda speaking. Nathan blinked. The CEO's hand twitched toward the folder like he could unsign what had already been written. Miranda, I said, never taking my eyes off Nathan. It's Eva. Control event triggered at 9:42 a.m. Eastern. The signature is official. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was charged, like the air before a thunderstorm. Miranda's reply was cool, sharp, and devastating. Understood. Wire in progress. Stand by. I ended the call, leaned back in my chair, and folded my hands in my lap. Nathan opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His father's pen slipped from his fingers and rolled across the table. This wasn't defeat. This was checkmate in slow motion. And Nathan had just signed his own surrender. The boardroom was a mausoleum after my call with Miranda. Nobody spoke, nobody moved. The only sound was the slow drip of the CEO's fountain pen ink bleeding into the paper Nathan had just signed. Nathan finally broke the silence. This is some kind of bluff. His voice cracked like glass under pressure. You can't just... What clause? There's no clause. I tilted my head slightly, like a teacher about to correct a student who hadn't done the reading. Section 14B, I said softly. Key executive change of control clause. Blank stares around the table. A few directors started scrolling on their tablets again. One of them muttered, Wait, 14B? The CEO, the real one, not the smirking heir, leaned forward, his jaw tight. Ava, what are you talking about? I let my smile fade just enough to look serious. 2 years ago, during the liquidity scare, Crownwell Ventures insisted on added protections. I helped draft them. You initialed every page, Tobias, including the one that lists me as a key executive. Tobias's eyes flickered, recognition dawning like a slow sunrise. He looked down at Nathan's signature again, then back at me. His face said it all. He knew. Nathan laughed nervously. Too loud. Even if that's true, which it's not, it's outdated. Irrelevant. You think some investor clause written in the middle of a crisis still applies? Nobody laughed with him. 2 months earlier, I had been sitting in my office late at night, reviewing documents that no one else bothered to touch. Most executives skim. They trust summaries, footnotes, or legal counsel. Not me. I read every line. And buried between force majeure clauses and equity covenants was my lifeline. Section 14B, it hadn't been easy to slip it through. Crownwell wanted ironclad protection against nepotism. The board wanted speed. I had been the middlewoman, smoothing edges, writing language, distracting nervous directors with talk of temporary adjustments. What I left behind wasn't temporary. It was permanent, binding, signed by Tobias himself. At the time, it was just insurance. I wasn't even thinking about myself. I was thinking about the company. I'd watched one too many overconfident heirs torch businesses out of ego. And Tobias, for all his competence, had a blind spot. His son. So I created the failsafe. Not for revenge, but for survival. Now, sitting across from Nathan's smug face, I realized survival and revenge were about to look very similar. Miranda already confirmed the wire. I said calmly. $100 million triggered by your signature, Nathan. Crownwell now controls operational authority for 18 months, and they've already designated me as their interim. Nathan slammed his fist against the table. You can't do this. You're just... He stopped himself. But the word was already hanging in the air. Just what? Just a woman? Just an employee? Just someone who'd given 18 years of her life to a company he treated like a toy? I leaned forward, voice still steady. I didn't do this, Nathan. You did. With that pen, I pointed at the ink drying on the page in front of him. The CEO finally spoke, voice low and dangerous. Nathan, do you have any idea what you've done? Nathan turned red. She's bluffing, Dad. I'll call legal. They'll fix this. But even as he said it, one of the directors, the kind who rarely spoke, cleared his throat. I just pulled up the clause. He turned his tablet toward the room. It's real. Section 14B. It names Eva explicitly. Gasps. Murmurs. A chair squeaked as someone shifted uncomfortably. The CEO's eyes closed slowly, like a man trying to wake up from a nightmare. When he opened them again, they locked on me. For the first time, he didn't see me as the loyal lieutenant. He saw me as the one holding the detonator. That night, I didn't go home right away. I drove to a storage facility 2 towns over, where a fireproof box held my duplicate contracts, notarized and stamped. Insurance for my insurance. I unlocked the box, pulled out the original binder, and flipped to Section 14B. Seeing my own name printed there, Eva Morales, Chief Strategy Officer, listed under Key Executives, made my hands tremble. Not with fear, with inevitability. For 18 years, I'd carried this company through acquisitions, crises, mergers, and betrayals. Every late-night call, every vendor saved, every quiet fix that no one gave me credit for. It all led here. And if Nathan thought sending me to the basement was an insult, he hadn't realized the truth yet. Basements are where foundations live, and mine was about to hold the whole company. The next morning, I arrived at the office to find my badge access revoked from the executive floor. My inbox was half empty, permissions stripped away. A calendar notification blinked. New location, B-level operations. They thought they were burying me. But all I could think as I walked toward the basement stairs was this. Nathan hadn't pushed me down. He'd just triggered the trapdoor. The basement smelled like bleach and old paper, a cocktail of mildew and forgotten promises. The fluorescent lights above buzzed like they were deciding whether to give up. My new office was a folding table shoved next to a janitorial sink. 1 chair. No outlets. A single flickering bulb overhead. Someone had left a stack of broken keyboards in the corner like a monument to failed cost-cutting. Nathan thought this would humiliate me, but humiliation only works if you care about appearances. I didn't. I cared about leverage. And down here, with no one watching, I finally had the space to prepare. My inbox chimed. Subject line, Executive Permissions Update. Body, Eva Morales reassigned to non-executive tier. Access group, Operational Support, Level 3. Effective immediately. I stared at the words the way a sniper looks through a scope. That email wasn't just an insult. It was the trigger. Under Section 14B, material reassignment or revocation of executive authority was the exact language required to hand Crownwell Ventures operational control. Nathan had just pulled the lever himself. I didn't forward the email right away. Instead, I saved multiple encrypted copies, uploaded one to a private cloud, and slipped a printed version into the slim blue folder that never left my side. Evidence is power. And I'd just been handed Exhibit A. A knock on the basement door pulled me from my laptop. A nervous intern stood there, cheeks flushed, clutching a clipboard like a shield. "Miss Morales?" she asked. "Mr. Nathan asked me to escort you down here. Said you might get lost." Her voice cracked on lost. She couldn't have been more than 22. I almost laughed. "I helped design this floor plan," I said dryly, standing. "I think I know where the basement is." The poor girl blushed tomato red. She wasn't my enemy. She was just following orders. I gave her a small smile and waved her off. "Don't worry, I'm fine." She left quickly, clearly relieved. I sat back down at the folding table, opened my laptop, and connected to Wi-Fi using my own hotspot. Nathan had revoked my network priority. Another petty move, another log for the fire. I spent hours combing through the digital bones of the company. Vendor contracts, archived dashboards, internal audit logs. Anything Nathan was too careless to secure. Every screenshot, every saved document, every archived thread was another nail waiting for his coffin. Above me, word trickled down about Nathan strutting across the executive floor like a rooster. He was bragging about his bold restructuring, floating ideas about launching an NFT division even though he barely knew how to set a password. I didn't interrupt, didn't confront him. Because silence is a weapon, and mine was loaded. At one point, I pushed back from the folding table and walked the basement halls. Dead printers lined the walls, old filing cabinets with masking tape labels, Q1, 2009 expense receipts, a pile of abandoned chairs. It looked like failure. But to me, it looked like cover. Nobody would come down here. Nobody would watch me. Which meant I could work in peace. Later, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I landed on one name. Miranda Crosswell. Crownwell Ventures. Sharp as glass. Patient as stone. 3 years earlier, during the last funding disaster, she'd given me her direct line. For when the children start playing with matches, she'd said with a half smile. Well, the matches had been lit. My finger hovered over the call button. Not yet. Timing was everything. I'd let Nathan dig his own grave a little deeper before I handed Miranda the shovel. By the time I packed up for the day, the blue folder was heavier than it looked. Every copy saved, every log preserved, every breadcrumb tucked safely away. As I climbed the stairs back to street level, faint laughter echoed from the executive floor above. Nathan, no doubt basking in his own reflection. I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity. Because while he celebrated upstairs, the fuse he'd lit was already burning. And when it reached the end, the explosion wouldn't happen in the basement. It would happen in the boardroom. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a glass of red wine, the blue folder open in front of me. The printed email lay on top, its language precise, undeniable. I ran my fingers over the paper. Proof of arrogance, proof of negligence, proof that after 18 years of loyalty, they thought they could shove me into the dark. But basements aren't just storage. They're where the foundation is. And mine was stronger than Nathan's entire house of cards. For days, I let Nathan believe he had won. He strutted around the executive floor like a rooster in a borrowed barn, parading his new title, holding visionary meetings where he mispronounced acronyms and promised initiatives he didn't understand. The staff clapped politely. Some laughed at his jokes. Most kept their heads down. But silence in a company is never loyalty. It's survival. And I knew how quickly survival could shift when money changed hands. One evening, sitting at my folding table in the basement, I finally took out my phone and dialed the number I'd been saving for years. Crownwell Ventures. A crisp voice answered. Miranda speaking. I didn't waste time. It's Eva. The clause has been triggered. Material reassignment. I have the documentation. There was a pause, the sound of ice clinking against glass on her end. Then, do you have proof? I have everything. Email updates, signed papers, even system access logs. Nathan demoted me without a board vote. Section 14B is live. Her tone sharpened. Send me the originals. No summaries, no screenshots. Originals only. I opened the blue folder, slid the key document onto my scanner, and within minutes she had it in her inbox. Silence while she read. Then a low whistle. Eva, this is the original signature set. Stamped, sealed. Your name is right there under key executives. I know, I said. I wrote half of it. She let out a small laugh. Not joyful, but impressed. You were patient. I wanted him to make the mistake himself. I didn't push. I waited. That's rare, she said. Most people panic. They try to force the trigger. You let him hang himself. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the water stains spreading across the basement ceiling. I wasn't interested in panic. I was interested in inevitability. There was a pause on the line. Then Miranda spoke again, calm and deliberate. Under Section 14B, operational control reverts to Crownwell for not less than 18 months. That means we take over appointments, budgets, strategy. Everything and Nathan, I asked. He'll still have his corner office, his espresso machine, his nameplate. But none of it will matter. His title will be empty. The control will be ours. I closed the folder, slid it back into my bag. Then let's make it official. The next morning, Nathan sent out a glossy, company-wide memo titled, New Era of Innovation. I nearly laughed when I read it. He promised growth, promised new divisions, promised forward synergy and digital disruption. It was the kind of hollow word salad consultants get paid 6 figures to deliver. But while he was busy writing his pep talks, Miranda's legal team was already moving. I forwarded them every email Nathan had sent with my name erased. Every internal system log showing my authority stripped. Every HR notice downgrading me to support staff. Each one was a bullet, and Miranda knew exactly where to aim. By the afternoon, my phone buzzed with a single text from her. Wire cleared. 100 million. Transfer confirmed. I read it twice, then a third time. $100 million. That was Crownwell buying the lock Nathan had just opened with his arrogance. I sat back in my chair, heart steady. It wasn't excitement I felt, not even triumph. It was the quiet gravity of inevitability, the moment when the scales tip and you realize nothing can stop them from falling. That evening, I left the office late. Nathan was still upstairs, holding court in the CEO's glass-walled office, laughing too loud, gesturing with his hands like a man directing traffic no one was following. He didn't notice me pass by. Why would he? To him, I was already buried, just another name on an HR memo. But the truth was simpler. I wasn't buried. I was building. And tomorrow, when Miranda walked through those doors with the weight of Crownwell Ventures behind her, Nathan would realize the basement wasn't exile. It was the foundation of his downfall. As I drove home, I thought about the years I had given this company. The sleepless nights, the mergers I'd saved, the crises I'd fixed while others hid. I thought about the loyalty I had shown and the humiliation they thought they could buy me off with. And I thought about Nathan's smirk, the one he wore when he signed my demotion papers. He believed the basement was the end of me. But for me, it was just the beginning. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for late afternoon, but when I arrived, the conference room was already buzzing. Directors whispered to each other in low tones, their faces drawn tight, their tablets glowing with pulled-up contracts. Nathan burst in 5 minutes late, sleeves rolled up, phone still in his hand. He looked red, sweaty, but tried to plaster on his trademark grin. "All right, let's clear this up," he said too loudly. "There's been some confusion about this clause nonsense. It's outdated paperwork. Doesn't apply anymore?" He spoke with the confidence of someone who had never once read a contract past the first page. One of the directors, Stewart, cleared his throat. "Nathan, I've reviewed Section 14B. It's active. It names Eva explicitly." Nathan laughed nervously. "It's irrelevant. My father never signed off on it. I'd remember." That's when the general counsel, who had been silent until now, unzipped a manila folder and slid a document across the table. "This is the agreement from the 2021 restructuring. Page 6, initialed by Tobias Dunning. Your father. His handwriting. Verified and time-stamped." Nathan froze, color draining from his face. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The speakerphone in the center of the table chirped, connecting. A gravelly voice filled the room. "Is everyone there?" It was Tobias, the CEO, Nathan's father. "Yes, sir," the general counsel said. "I understand my son demoted Eva this week." "Yes, sir," I replied. A long pause followed. Then, flat and cold. "Show me what he signed." The counsel lifted Nathan's paperwork to the camera. Silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Then Tobias spoke again. Jesus Christ. He signed the trigger clause. Nathan stumbled over his words. "Dad, it's not binding, it's..." "Be quiet." His father's voice cut like a blade. "You moved against a key executive without board approval. You've jeopardized our entire relationship with Crownwell Ventures. Effective immediately, you're to step back from all executive decisions until this matter is resolved. Nathan's jaw worked, but no words came. He looked like a man realizing the air had been sucked from the room. The glass doors opened then, and silence fell. Miranda Crosswell walked in. Black suit, leather briefcase, eyes sharp enough to cut steel. She didn't wait to be introduced. She set her folder on the table like a verdict. This is the legal notice confirming operational authority has transferred to Crownwell Ventures under Section 14B, she said. Effective as of yesterday's wire clearance, $100 million. She turned, eyes locking on Nathan. Effective immediately, you are no longer acting CEO. You will not access systems, authorize decisions, or represent Dalek systems in any capacity. His mouth opened, but she raised a hand. We've also reviewed your emails, including the one where you wrote, I'll delete the clause before legal even notices. They still use fax machines. Groans around the table. Stuart winced. The general counsel rubbed his forehead like he was calculating early retirement. Nathan collapsed into his chair, pale as paper. Then Miranda turned to me. Crownwell requires stable leadership during the transition. We're appointing an interim CEO under the stabilization agreement. Eva, the board will expect you to step in. The room shifted. No one objected. No one dared. I nodded once. I accept. Miranda gestured toward the head of the table, the chair Nathan had been occupying like a throne. It's yours. I stood, walked slowly, and sat down. The leather creaked under me, familiar and solid. Across the room, Nathan stared at me with hollow eyes. The smirk was gone. The arrogance was gone. All that remained was the realization that he had signed away everything. The meeting ended quickly after that. Directors shuffled out, murmuring. Legal gathered their files. Miranda snapped her briefcase shut. I didn't move right away. I just sat in the chair, hands folded, letting the weight of it settle. 18 years of work. 18 years of loyalty. And all it took was one bad signature to bring it full circle. Nathan lingered by the doorway, shoulders slumped. For the first time, he looked small. I stood, gathered my folder, and walked toward him. No anger in my voice, no triumph, just quiet finality. Enjoy the basement, Nathan, I said softly. You'll find it character building. His face crumpled. He didn't reply. I walked out, heels echoing against the marble floor, each step steady. For years, they thought I was the foundation holding everything together. They were right. But they forgot foundations can shift. And when they do, the whole house either stands stronger or it collapses. This time it collapsed on Nathan.